we're going to be diving deeply into, the state of emergency that's declared in River State by President Bola Tinubu. And we've seen different ideologies, the different thoughts and different reactions to it, from legal practitioners saying that, it's the president erred by putting in the suspension clause in there, and to other Nigerians commending and saying that it was a move in the right direction to create sanity in the group. But let us understand the legality and where the Constitution stands in all of that. Now, joining me in the studio to give us a detailed analysis, to inform us and educate us to the best of our understanding all the whole legality that's playing out in River State, we have Sam Kargbo, who is, SAN and also a constitutional, expert in all of this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you this morning. So before I go into the Section 305, what's your take on the president's stand on Rivers, declaring the state of emergency and suspending the governor, his deputy, and the 27 lawmakers of the State House of Assembly? What's your take on that?
It's difficult for me to give an opinion independent of the facts in issue, because most times when you make a contrary opinion, it could be taken as second-guessing the president. I think he is the chief executive of the state. We have a single executive with enormous powers. Enormous powers. Every executive function and power of the federation is in the hands of the president. But the Constitution is very clear. The Constitution says no part of Nigeria, and Nigeria in particular, should not be governed in any other manner other than the way it's set out in the Constitution. Section 1, subsection 2 of the Constitution is very clear on that, meaning that Nigeria can only be governed in the manner set out by the Constitution. And the federation is divided into states, and each state, the Constitution assigned the executive powers to the governor and the legislative power to the State House of Assembly. And each one of those organs of government is assigned functions and powers that we call enumerated powers. And by the concept of separation of powers, no, the president or any other arm of government is supposed to what? Interfere with the purview or the powers of the other organ of government that is established by the Constitution. The Constitution also gave Mr. President the power to make a proclamation declaring a state of emergency in a state or the country as a whole if there is a war, internal and external aggression, there is a breakdown of law and order, and so forth. The incidents that would justify a state of emergency are all spelled out in the Section 305. But the section did not talk about removal or suspension. And there is the common understanding that you cannot remove. That, to me, is not certain, that the president cannot remove, because the Constitution has, in its own wisdom, specified in Section 188 the condition for the removal and who to remove the governor. That section is clear. And if Section 305, even though it's a latter provision, did not mention removal, how would you factor it in there? And yes, Obasanjo in 2004 suspended Darie, who was then governor of Plateau State, and in 2006 suspended Fayose. And I think during President Goodluck Jonathan, we also had about two of such incidents, in Borno and thereabout. Yes. So you had those ones, suspension. But here is the catch. The emergency powers gives you the authority or authorization to suspend rights, basic rights of the people in a manner that would enable you maintain the, what would I call, maintain law and order. And that would also enable you respond adequately to the incident or the incidents that triggered the emergency situation that you made the declaration for. And whatever action you take, to my mind, must be one towards addressing that specific action or incident that prompted you to declare the state of emergency.
So does this move, do you see or do you foresee a possible solution with this declaring state of emergency and suspension of the actors in the picture? Do you see it creating a possible solution to all that has been playing out in Rivers State?
Well, every action has a reaction. And of course, my take and my expectation and my wish is that the parties in conflict who had actually foisted this on the state would see reason to sit down and find a political solution to this. But if they become belligerent, if that's the word, or they believe they can take the law into their hands and respond in a manner that will justify the state of emergency, there may not be an end to it that soon. But here is also what I think we should be worried about. When you declare a state of emergency, you're not just declaring it to punish the actors. That's not the essence and purpose of that power. The essence and purpose of the power is to enable you bring back to life that which the state of emergency is taken away from the people. For an example, if there is a breakdown of law and order, the state of emergency should enable you restore law and order. And it is not for the purpose of punishing the actors. The actors could only come in if taking them out of the scene would enable you sustain the law and order quickly and better and more effectively. But beyond that, don't pay attention and let the focus not be on, say, you are addressing, because mind you, the actors are agents of the states. The people of Rivers State are to be governed by a government, constitutionally constituted government, which is a government made up of what? A governor, a state house of assembly, and a judiciary. The constitution did not envisage a sole administrator, not in any guise. So you have to have that in mind and focus on how best and quick to restore that particular state back to the people. Because mind you, the sovereignty of that state belongs to the people.
Sure,
it does not belong to the governor or the state house of assembly.
True indeed, but the judiciary is still functional. We saw that it was, it's still functional in Rivers State. What role do you expect them to play in all that is happening at the moment? Do you think they've actually even played enough when it comes to dousing the chaos that has been happening there so far? And at this point that the president has taken a stance, where can the judiciary step in the state?
The judiciary usually is not a proactive institution. It's not one that would act in response to situation. It only addresses disputes that are taken to it by aggrieved people.
Okay.
The only time it would play a role here if any of those actors who are affected by this state of emergency take matter to court. But mind you, let's come back to it. The government, as is defined and constituted by the Constitution, is not one by a judiciary and a sole administrator. The government of a state as envisaged by the Constitution and expected to function as a government is one with what? A state house of assembly, an executive arm of government, the governor, and a judiciary. So if you have one out of the three, you do not have a government. So let's have that today. So let's get back to the thing. And this is where I have my worry about what is happening now. You've taken away that right of the people to decide who to govern them and how they should be governed. The people had, in the election, given mandates to executive personnel and the legislative personnel. Those ones went at war with each other and created a crisis that the president has characterized as what? A breakdown of law and order and public safety that he necessitated his own intervention. But mind you, usually it's not just enough for you to characterize an event and justify it. The event by itself has to be commonly accepted as one that has what? Broken down law and order and public safety in the state. It's not just enough to have overnight vandalization of pipelines. You now say, oh, because of the vandalization of pipeline yesterday, that justifies for me to declare a state of emergency today. You can't convince anybody with that kind of a factual scenario.
So you're saying that the state of emergency declaration is not justifiable?
No, in that sense. But let me wait. The president has also, mind you, he based his own reason on two flanks. One, the activities of the actors, which is the dispute between the governor and the State House of Assembly, and he laid heavily on what he, to his mind, characterized as the misconduct of the governor. And I think he's leaning very heavily on the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has made very clear findings that the governor had actually collapsed what? The governing system of the state by appropriating, by dismantling the State House of Assembly. And because there is no State of Assembly in the state, by virtue of the actions of the governor, there is no government in the state. So to him, since there is no government, he, as the chief executive of the state and the protector and maintainer of the Constitution, he gives him what? That justification to go and restore governance in the state, government in the state. But you do not solve a problem with another problem.
All right.
Because what they say two wrongs don't make it right.
All right. Due to time, we're pressed of time, and I really wish we had a longer time on this conversation. But we've said a lot that, a lot of Nigerians do not understand and they've misconstrued over time, and we appreciate that. But quickly now, in a minute, what are the future implications of this move taken by, the president? Do you think it has set a certain, precedent for the declaration of state of emergency over issues that might not be worth it? What does this mean, for our democracy in the long run?
Obasanjo had already said this bad precedent. Whenever there is a political dispute, you hide under the guise of that section to declare state of emergency and suspend the governor. My take on that is that is a very dangerous path, and it's not one that we should actually tread, because it's very dangerous.
All right. Thank Thank you so much for joining us, sir. It's been a very short but informative, conversation with you this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And to our listeners out there, once again, we apologize for what happened earlier, but I hope you've been able to pick something from the conversation we've had with Sam Kargbo, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria and also an expert in constitutional law in Nigeria. Thank you so much for sticking around. We'll see you again, same time tomorrow. Bye for now.